The next day, Monday, I returned from California for the beginning of a very eventful week. The IBM board was meeting a week later. It became obvious that the search committee had begun to shut down its operations, because, one by one, the other rumored candidates for the IBM job started to announce or to leak to the media that they were not interested in the job. On Wednesday, the Wall Street Journal reported that I was the only candidate. The next day, so did every other major business publication. It was time to get this whole ordeal over with. Burke and I agreed to announce on that Friday, March 26th. That set off a mad scramble to organize both internal and external messages in the midst of a firestorm of leaks and headlines. IBM made the announcement on Friday morning, even though the cover story of Business Week, published that morning, already stated I had taken the job. A press conference began at 9:30 a.m. at the Hilton Hotel in New York City. John Akers, Jim Burke, and I spoke. Burke wanted to explain the search process that had seemed so public and disjointed for 3 months. He made these comments during his opening statement: there was only a handful of people in the world who were capable of handling this job. I want you to know that Lou Gerstner was on that original list, but we then did a worldwide search of well over 125 names, which we processed and kept reducing, and pretty well got back to the list that we started with. We gave those people on the list code names in an attempt to keep it out of the press, a vain attempt, I might add. You might be interested that Lou Gerstner was the first person I talked to on that list and consequently had the code name Abel. I knew all the other candidates, and I knew them all well. There isn't another candidate that could do this job any better than Lou Gerstner will. We made one specific offer for this job and only one, and that was to Louis Gerstner. While many people felt that technology was the key to this, there's a list of the specifications that we as a committee put together from the beginning. The fact is, there are 15 things on the list and only one statement of the 15, information and high technology industry experience, are highly desirable, but not opposed to considering extraordinary business leaders. All of the others list qualities which are inherent in Lou Gerstner. I knew my life was changing forever when I walked to the podium and 36 photographers surged forward, and I had to conduct an entire press conference through non-stop, blinding camera flashes. As visible as American Express and RJR had been, this was something altogether different. I was now a public figure. This wasn't just any company, even any very big company. IBM was an institution, a global one, and its every move was scrutinized by the outside world. I was taking on a daunting challenge, and I'd be doing it in a fishbowl. I am by nature a private person and, to be frank, I don't enjoy dealing with the press. On top of that, I looked around the industry, and as far as the eye could see there were, and still are, senior executives seeking the highest personal profile they could manage. I felt then, and I feel today, that while that kind of relentless publicity seeking generates a lot of coverage, and may even help the company in the short run, in the long run it damages corporate reputation and customer trust. So I faced the cameras and lights that morning with mixed emotions. I was as full of adrenaline as I had ever been in my life. At the same time, I knew this was the big show and there was no escaping it. My own remarks were brief. I was just trying to get through the ordeal without dealing with a lot of specific questions about why I felt I was qualified for the job and what I was going to do to fix IBM. But those were exactly the questions I got in a lengthy Q&A following the formal remarks. Needless to say, I provided little nourishment for the reporters. I simply had no idea what I would find when I actually arrived at IBM. Meeting the IBM team. After the press conference came a series of internal IBM meetings. As I look back at my schedule, I see that the first meeting the IBM human resources people had set up was a telephone conference call with the general managers of all the country operations around the world, underscoring that the power base of the company was the country leaders. We then raced from Manhattan by helicopter some 30 miles north to the company's worldwide headquarters, in Armonk, New York. While I had been in some IBM facilities before as a customer, I had never been in the headquarters building. I will never forget my first impression. It reminded me of a government office, long, quiet corridor after long, quiet corridor of closed offices, quiet that was broken only by the presence of the almost blindingly bright orange carpeting. There was not a single indication in the artwork or other displays that this was a computer company. There was no computer in the CEO's office. I was ushered into a large conference room to meet with the corporate management board, roughly the top 50 people in the company. I don't remember what the women wore, but it was very obvious that all the men in the room were wearing white shirts, except me. Mine was blue, a major departure for an IBM executive. Weeks later at a meeting of the same group, I showed up in a white shirt and found everyone else wearing other colors. When John Akers had suggested this meeting earlier in the week, he had assumed it was going to be simply an opportunity for me to meet the senior members assembled. However, I viewed it as a critical opportunity to introduce myself and, at least, set an initial agenda for my new colleagues. I worked hard in advance organizing what I wanted to say to the group. In fact, in researching this book, I discovered detailed notes I had prepared, something I don't do very often for informal meetings. After John introduced me, the group sat politely, expecting nothing more than a "welcome and I'm delighted to be part of the team" salutation. Instead, I spoke for 40 or 45 minutes. I started out explaining why I took the job, that I hadn't been looking for it, but had been asked to take on a responsibility that was important to our country's competitiveness and our economy's health. I didn't say it at the time, but it was my feeling that if IBM failed, there would be repercussions beyond the demise of one company. I indicated that I had no preconceived notions of what needed to be done and, from what I could tell, neither did the board. I said that for each of them, and for me, there would be no special protection for past successes. But I clearly needed their help. I then dealt with what I described as my early expectations. If IBM is as bureaucratic as people say, let's eliminate bureaucracy fast. Let's decentralize decision-making wherever possible, but this is not always the right approach. We must balance decentralized decision-making with central strategy and common customer focus. If we have too many people, let's right-size fast, let's get it done by the end of the third quarter. I explained that what I meant by right-size is straightforward. We have to benchmark our costs versus our competitors and then achieve best-in-class status. I also remarked that we had to stop saying that IBM didn't lay off people. Our employees must find it duplicitous and out of touch with what has been going on for the last year. In fact, since 1990, nearly 120,000 IBM employees had left the company, some voluntarily and some involuntarily, but the company had continued to cling to the fiction of no layoffs. Perhaps the most important comments I made at that meeting regarded structure and strategy. At the time, the pundits and IBM's own leadership were saying that IBM should break itself up into smaller, independent units. I said, maybe that is the right thing to do, but maybe not. We certainly want decentralized, market-driven decision-making. But is there not some unique strength in our ability to offer comprehensive solutions, a continuum of support? Can't we do that and also sell individual products? In hindsight, it was clear that, even before I started, I was skeptical about the strategy of atomizing the company. I then talked about morale. It is not helpful to feel sorry for ourselves. I'm sure our employees don't need any rah-rah speeches. We need leadership and a sense of direction and momentum, not just from me but from all of us. I don't want to see a lot of prophets of doom around here. I want can-do people looking for short-term victories and long-term excitement. I told them there was no time to focus on who created our problems. I had no interest in that. We have little time to spend on problem definition. We must focus our efforts on solutions and actions. Regarding their own career prospects, I noted that the press was saying that the new CEO has to bring a lot of people in from the outside. I pointed out that I hoped this would not be the case, that IBM had always had a rich talent pool, perhaps the best in the world. I said, if necessary, I will bring in outsiders, but you will each first get a chance to prove yourself, and I hope you will give me some time to prove myself to you. Everyone starts with a clean slate. Neither your successes nor failures in the past count with me. I went on to summarize my management philosophy and practice. I manage by principle, not procedure. The marketplace dictates everything we should do. I'm a big believer in quality, strong competitive strategies and plans, teamwork, payoff for performance, and ethical responsibility. I look for people who work to solve problems and help colleagues. I sack politicians.